Meditations on the natural world, direct observation, attentiveness, listening to silence. Boundless space, wilds, solitude, nothingness. Orientation north. Get lost physically and conceptually. Break vital new ground, give form to thought. Create experiences for my public. Open up my public's perception. Fuse art, architecture and science. Evoke austerity of nature. Create distilled poetry, a visual parallel of intense quiet. Clarity that is profoundly contemplative. Risk-taking. Don't cling to what I know. Forget rules, chance openings. Study details of water and ice in the environment. Play and experiment with it in my studio. Enable water and ice to act itself in the work. They have a collaborative nature. Research in the studio involves standing back, observing. Water and ice both medium and subject in the work. I can recall play with water as a child, exploring streams and big river. Work points obliquely to environmental issues, highlighting world's most challenging problem, threat to our most precious natural resource, most vital of all earthly compounds, water and ice. Their ebb and flow over time help form our world. Always follow the work. Whatever evaluation we finally make of a stretch of land, no matter how profound or accurate, we will find it inadequate. The land retains an identity of its own, still deeper and more subtle than we can know. Our obligation toward it then becomes simple, to approach with an uncalculating mind, with an attitude of regard, to try to sense the range and variety of its expression, its weather and colours and animals. To intend from the beginning to preserve some of the mystery within it as a kind of wisdom to be experienced, not questioned. And to be alert for its openings, for that moment when something sacred reveals itself within the mundane, and you know the land knows you are there.
Up at Store Point in Sutherland, we have a bothy right by the sea. It's a wonderful place to be. It's a place where we go to think, plan our next work and just generally rest and be inspired.
It happened completely by accident that we found this place and the Lighthouse Stores, and it became a place to meditate, to chill out, to, it had everything we needed. A place, a thinking space, as it were, in between teaching at the university, in between shows, etc.
Over the years I've gained so much from being there on the coast. It's wonderful waking up in the morning and hearing the sea right beside it. And on a stormy day, really stormy day, the spray comes over the bothy. Collecting driftwood is a part of the routine in the north because we don't have any electricity, and because we're by the shore we have plenty of free wood. That's the wall drawing, an elevation of the lighthouse up the road. This bothy was built by the Lighthouse Board, in fact, and that's why it's called the Lighthouse Stores, because it was used to store things for the lighthouse when first it was built.
I'm still very much enchanted by that area. It's been it's been a key element in the work. There's incredibly minimal landscapes without trees, wonderful coastlines. Yes, it's really acted as a catalyst over the years.
My obsessive interest in water lies deep within my personality and ancestral background. My mother's people, the Fergusons, came from the remote archipelago of St Kilda. This seminal island and its grouping of stacks, far out in the Atlantic, fired my imagination from early childhood, as did my mother's striking accounts of living there off and on as a child, often left with relatives by her father, who came from the island but had emigrated to Glasgow and continued to travel back and forth in his yacht. Owing to this personal history, my inbuilt compass always points me north and to remote locations. While this island within directly influenced earlier stages of the work, shown at the Arnold Feeney and Talbot Rice Gallery, for example, I can still identify its power within my current practice. I'm an environmental artist and I create experiences for my public. I'm aiming to open up perceptions and understanding of how our environment functions. My work is a fusion of art, architecture and science, with water and ice both medium and subject. I'm endeavouring to create an experience of seeing, drawing people in through the senses and encouraging them to consider water's worth, to marvel at its visual effect and to appreciate its universal and sustaining properties. Living by the coast when I was a child, rather than toys, I can remember as a child playing with water. And so from earliest memories, I really enjoyed that sense of wonder at water and the movement of water.
Ogilvie sets out to inspire. To see how she does this, we must appreciate the range of her work, from stunning films made on location in Ilulissat, on the far west coast of Greenland, to her studio processes, where the playful and the intense are mixed, and on to the resolution in grand installations, where we read patterns flowing across her screens and filling the atmosphere encircling our bodies.
Liz was one of those ambitious artists who were invited to the DCA by Katrina Brown and sticks within the collective memory to an extent that folk are still talking about that work. The power of that on me personally was just such a beautiful, beautiful show.
Water has a profound meaning for me. It's my natural element. I speak its language and have been raised to its horizon. And my idea of quietness is to be immersed in the icy and dark water of an alpine lake, the same water that was previously ice.
For this show, I'm looking at water and rhythm and have been researching this for the last year. And the more I discover about water, I think the more difficult it becomes, and the more I realise that how little I know. For Gallery 2, I have worked with the taiko drummer, Japanese taiko drummer Joji Hirota, and we have made a piece which I suppose portrays, in a more conceptual way, portrays the whole water cycle. So that piece in Gallery 2 really, I suppose, reflects the large installation in the main gallery, in the main space. By drawing people in through the senses, there is space to bring their own lives and understanding into the work. Through creating an artificial environment inside, my aim is to bring others' attention to the distance between their everyday life practices and elemental resources. Taking and isolating water from its natural habitat highlights its fundamental qualities and points back to its place of origin. And so, as an artist, in inventing my own universe and language, I draw people in, then step back, leaving no trace of myself. I'm interested in architecture as well, and I feel that I wanted a very minimal display with water enacting itself, as it were, and water being the main feature in the piece. The water cycle is obviously one of the great rhythms
and I wanted within that to portray smaller rhythms, small, very crucial rhythms, which are universally known. The whole exhibition is designed to give people a very much enhanced view of water and hopefully confirm in their minds that water is something very precious and something that we have to care for.
Reflecting on the studio, my late husband Bob and I were well qualified to take on any massive project, as we both worked on an ambitious scale and also previously transformed a joiner's yard into a great home and studio in Leith, Edinburgh. Our search for new premises produced this definitive space and location in the form of the derelict 1930s cinema on the Fife Coast, north of Edinburgh. We spent 2 years pulling apart, then transforming it, with the generous help of John Hope Architects and excellent local builders. We weren't at all intimidated by the physical work, risk-taking and time required in the recycling of this building. And of course we've gained so much from this exceptional space and its site. For nearly 30 years, Sea Loft has provided both a sanctuary and a vibrant studio environment, and it has become part of who we are.
Being at home here in Kinghorn has had tremendous influence in the work. And I have to say, I love the place and I love the people here, and I've gained so much from it.
Bob always recognised the value of studio visits by young artists and the fact that they would see how artists lived and worked and lived their lives. In the last few weeks of his life, I said to him, well, I'm going to start a residency in your name for young artists, with young artists from Scotland, Scotland-based artists, working alongside young artists from Japan for a month in the summer. And this residency also takes place in Japan as well.
With both Bob and Liz, they talk to us young artists, and they give us the importance, not that we deserve, but the importance that they might see in us and in our validity. So they give us a validity that otherwise probably wouldn't have.
My normal days, I have another job and I don't have a studio. Then my thinking and my limit is decide. But this time, or very special, it's good experience in my future.
Being offered this residency, which was probably different from any other residency that I looked for or that I could have been invited to, was the attention to developing not just your practice but you as a person, where Liz shared her network, where she invited her collaborators, her links to see our work, and how that would aid our work to develop and flourish.
I managed to acquire, for the princely sum of a penny, a warehouse in Kirkcaldy Docks, quite close to my studio. And although it was in excellent condition, but it was there was a lot of junk inside and partitions, etc., which had to be cleared out by myself and
a group of builders who did an excellent job, and then we built the installation in that. This warehouse was very large. It could house a huge range of water cycle events happening at the same time. In a way, it set the pace for ideas, up until now, and because I do believe in these big experiments, and it is a bit risky, but I feel it gave me a lot of confidence in the ability to, in the vision to see what I wanted on that scale.
I've always followed my work, and in recent years it has led me on a remarkable journey into the world of water in its solid phase. I'm increasingly drawn into its profound world and continue to be enthralled by all I read about the ecology and psychology of ice, as well as its esoteric history, and crucially issues worldwide brought about by its melting.
Elizabeth Ogilvie's distinguished career as an artist crystallizes in Out of Ice. Her subtle entangling of filmmaking, installation, interdisciplinary research and fieldwork that she calls a kind of choreographic practice is a remarkable achievement. Having now reached an extraordinary level of internal complexity, how might it be used as a tool for thinking deeply about extreme environments? At the very moment when our own planet is itself threatening to become extreme, her work is tangible, accessible, and immediate, a welcome art in unwelcoming times.
In the cool vastness of P3, Out of Ice presented two expansive pools of water into which large ice blocks slowly melted, dispensing water drops which broke the still surface. Huge, meditative, panoramic, real-time projections magnified transitions from ice to water, projected on the surrounding walls through physics principles. Luminous pieces of ice hung as if in mid-air. As the individual ice forms melted, they were replaced, therefore communicating the potential for positive human intervention in addressing climate change.
Some of the metaphors of filmmaking, the freeze frame, for example, embody the elemental sense we have from beyond art. It encourages us to slow down and see the world differently, with greater attention. The appeal to slowness is political as well as artistic, in a world that is accelerating to a point beyond understanding.
My recent installations evoke significant concerns around deep time, global warming and the Anthropocene. Beyond its visual and physical immersion, the work offers space for opinion, debate and agency, drawing on our contemporary engagement in the global ecological long game and a time horizon rarely explored in the arts. Ice has formed our environment and continues to do so. Its presence is key to the future of our planet. It's in ice that the roots of our existence are found, and where underneath the ice our future's uncharted history lies. My ongoing project, Out of Ice, offers me further investigation into ways of understanding ice and its place in the living whole. Over recent years, I've based myself annually in Ilulissat, aiming to explore ice in its various forms. This is a stunningly beautiful UNESCO World Heritage Site, uniquely important for long-term glaciological studies due to the enormous production of icebergs from the Cermak Gujaslak Glacier. Freezing and melting, clarity and confusion, organisation and turbulence. These are the wonderful polarities by which the cosmos thrives. What then is the secret imperative of polar melting, of the apocalyptic global warming amid which we now live? It is perhaps this: the melting that we have wantonly made through our greed and waste should shock us into a new awareness of ice, of its place in the living whole, an awareness that might translate into new modes of being, less egocentric, more ecological. But the occult significance of Antarctic and Arctic thawing might be something else again, something more horrifying yet potentially more sublime. The human species, but an ambiguous instant in cosmological durations, might have already set unalterably in motion forces that will inevitably drown and dissolve the greed of men, as well as civilized beauty. Possibly this, the removal from the planet of the most destructive species ever to exist, is the truest and most tragic ecology, an end of wasteful death in the name of new life. I've gradually built up friendships there, discovering how inhabitants flourish in the face of an extreme existence, reading nature, and how they're having to adjust to cultural and ecological shifts caused by climate change. Through working on the project and collaborating with Inuit and local residents in northwest Greenland, the Arctic environment and its people have cast a very strong spell over me, as have their stories about ice. Arctic residents' unique reading of ice has long been recognised and remains the pillar of their identity and resilience, and their most valued intellectual treasure. They confirm the importance of the sublime northern emptiness and its central position in their lives, character, and interaction with nature.
Nilsimi ataqarpunga maanilu lilussanit inungornikuunga aalisartuullungalu piniartuunga taavalu takornerissinik upernassakkimussiussartuullunga maani aalisartuuni luisseqqaani imaanaangittorsuuq ingasampoq sikoqartilluu soorlu massakkut pissuti takutikkaat silaallangoriartornaa malillungu ilulissakaarluat allangoriartormi aama ukiunisiu kingulissaanu eqqarsaatingalugu naluarpu sila pissusiaqanuq allangoriartortingissanersoq massakku eqqoriaruminaassinermut taavalu qangarmun aleqqiullugu sila allangornikoruissuunga massakkut sommeq nakkaayunnaarnikuungami аннертууми илулиани кисуни пеқангила ангисоорсуусаарлуарпи сиорнатсигут массаккут микисуарааннааппут нилликаанерулернаа писсутаасимагунаарами сорнеқ тунгаани қеққани нунатами икканнерми пеқалерникуусимарпалукками таавалу массаккут микинерулерникууппусиккут силааллангориарторнерамалиллу.
The sea ice transforms not only the natural environment around Inuit, but also their internal landscape. With their guidance over time, I'm gradually gaining knowledge of ice, its physical properties and character, and its important role in the vital history of Arctic peoples. Inuit communities in Greenland live in a constantly changing environment, and there is enormous potential to learn from them about documenting changes to ice. Hunters in the Arctic spend a lifetime learning to read the signs of land and sea and developing the skills needed for survival. For millennia, this knowledge has been passed down from generation to generation. In the Greenlandic language, there seems to be no specific word for environment, presumably because they see themselves respectfully as a mere part of it and as privileged, very much in accord with Inuit perception of the environment as a revered partner.
Everybody who lives in Greenland know about the ice, how ice is made. Ice, especially Greenlandic inland ice, is made by snow, snowflake or snowflake. But between snowflakes there is microscopic air bubble being captured and pressed down. 12-15 years ago, first time ever. In winter times there was no sea ice because of the water was warmer than usual. Then for each year we noticed the iceberg getting smaller and smaller and lower and lower. Now the average height of the icebergs is max 40 meter high compared for 12-15 years ago, 120 meter high. And now, because of the glacier inside of the Ilulissat ice fjord has been retreated approx 20 kilometer. Now it's calving over the land and produce smaller icebergs for each year. Before the global warming around here, in winter times, it normally in the beginning of December, sea ice covered all this area. So normally it's closed by sea ice, and when there are sea ice, we walk on it, or dog sledding, and hunting from the sea ice, fishing. But now sea ice is not thick enough to dog sled. What I know about the ice and my knowledge, I have not transferred to my kids. I have no possibility to transfer it because they changed so fast. And it was very difficult to try to explain the kids about global warming. We just know and have noticed there has been change. This one, that's what I'm talking about before. Transparent ice. There is no air bubbles inside, like you can see, it's transparent. Compare this one, lot of air, compressed air. Then you can hear when I do this, it's explode. Very easily. It's cracked. Compare this one, nothing happened. Then you can see air bubbles inside, like this, like tiny lines. And believe me, it's cold on my hands. The Greenlandic people and the Greenlandic society is very good to adapt for each decade. We have no choice, we have to. Then we try to live one day at a time, because it's very difficult to plan ahead.
In 2013, my colleague, the filmmaker Rob Page, accompanied me to film ice and Inuit and Greenlandic friends and collaborators, talking about ice and changes in northern Greenland. This footage acted as a portal to the installation in my London exhibition, along with footage of ice filmed among the ice floes, bergs and glaciers around Ilulissat and at the Greenlandic ice cap. Greenland is a physically demanding place in which to conduct field work, especially among the ice flows of the Cermak-Gujaslight Glacier. Challenges in the work were also as much intellectual as physical, in finding ways to draw out narratives combining scientific and artistic perspectives. Reflecting on the relationship that exists between the material and the metaphorical landscape, I'm also endeavouring to reconcile my visitor's perception of emptiness and the sublime with local ways of inhabiting.
Well, in the summer, all this is just a big bay, nothing but water and a few icebergs. And it's actually, we use this for many things. We can go ice fishing on it. Also, it's a good way to get fresh water. You can see out here there are a couple of icebergs, frozen solid, in the bay. Normally there's a lot more, but at this time of year they've gotten a lot smaller and, well, few. So you have to walk pretty far. It takes about, I guess, 1 hour to walk out to that one, straight there. And then you cut off ice that you bring home, just brush them off, put some water on it to get the salt water off, and then melt it for drinking water. So all the icebergs in this area come from the glacier, Gangia, in Ilulissat. And because of all this ice there is now, we can't get any supplies, but we're used to that. So we used to take dog sledge over here to go to the big city. It's about 1-2 hour trip on a dog sledge. You can also see it on the way our dogs are put on the sledge. We use a half moon form instead of they do in, where is it? Alaska and Canada. They use the 2 and 2 and 2. We use a half moon because that's the best way to use when you drive over ice. The dogs, they can change position accordingly to who wants to pull most. The more they are to the center, the more they pull. Wait. And down here is where in the summer they bring up whales. So also in the summer you can see a lot of whale bones down here. The last couple of years it hasn't been good ice because it hasn't been so big that we can go around it, or so small we can get through it. It has been in between. So all the boats get just stuck in the ice. So we can't go anywhere on the boats. And we can't even use dog sleds because it's not solid enough. So we're kind of trapped where we are because the ocean is our highway. That's how we get around. Either on dog sleds in the winter or boats in the summer. That when I was a kid, every day, every single day, you heard sounds that sounded like thunder, but it wasn't. It was these giant icebergs cracking apart. Just one single crack in one of these 50-meter tall icebergs sounded like a thunderbolt. And us, my generation, we grew up with that. We grew up with that sound. And now it's gone. So some of my friends and I, we really feel like that our childhood memories are melting away with the ice.
I'm privileged to have made friends with these Inuit and Greenlandic fishermen, young Inuit from remote communities, skippers and Inuit explorers, all living among ice. Inuit communities in Greenland and elsewhere have been warning us of the threat to their physical and cultural survival that climate change creates, and have been building solidarity links with campaigns against fossil fuels exploration with other peoples worldwide. They are only too aware that the glacial brook is one of the world's most productive glaciers and fastest in the world. Within the last 10 years, the glacier has doubled its speed, moving around 40 metres every 24 hours, and in recent years the glacier front has withdrawn significantly. It calves around 46 cubic kilometres of ice every year.
Ja, det er godt. Det er så rundt. Det er så rundt. Ja. Vi får sure runder. And he's leaving now.
Yeah.
And he goes very, very fast.
Okay.
Okay, the bush. Yeah. Nunan issittuni angalasarneq eqqarsaatigalugu pingittunan inuttut aamasoorunam tulluarsartussaavugut atortutigut inuunikkullu pissutsinullu tamakkua aqusaagassaapput nunan allan angalanikuunga soorlu Afrikamiinikuunga Tansaniami tassanaam angalaartillunga paassivara tassannunallit aamasoorunami inuunermin atukkamigullu aam tulluarsarnikuupput tamakkami tamakku soorlu inuiaqati allatakugaanni tanammaluiniartarpaqa tulluarsarsinnaaneq atortutigut pissutsinullu soorlu assersuutittaasinnaavara siullerm issittuma angalaqqaarama imatut ekspedisuunitut arnaanaallut angalanikuu tasnit 1990 pivotaan
Canadami angalaqataaninni akilinernakuaqatiu taakkuatikeraarlu tassana angalan allattu ingerlagami qimusseratta tassani taavalu atisavut qanu inui atsaan atorluta taavalu nerisassat aamma inui nerisassaat niknerilluta tassan assiingittorusuumarlut tas misilittaaqarfiinikuak angalanerm issittumi taammakkaluart assiingkaluarluti aam tassan akilinerm angalanermi una erserpo soorunam aamma qanu atuassarati ulluinarnam inuulernermi akilinermiilluni tamakkua am ilinniagassaapput inui imma amerlanerit apputsermeq isigisarpaatoorlu qianartorsuartut ulorianartutut kisiani taamaangiivippu paasinarsivu taannartaa ajutoriataassagaluaruit арлаатсигут иммақа соорлупит сигиссаппа тималунни ajornerusum pisoqariataassagaluar tassangaannartum anerersuariataalisagaluarpa taava apput iluaqutigilersinnaava taan erseqqittoruissuam uu akilinermi takuarput soorlu apput oqorsaatisatulluni allaa isigineqarluni taannaam soqutiginartoruissuu soorlu illuatungaani isiginnileriataarluni siornatigut ulorianartorsuat isigineqarniku aluartu atuassarasitaasun tulluarsarsinnaana taan erseqqittum uamisiginikuua taamakkamaamma maani issittumiinernuannerisoruissuua soorlu ilulissani aputeqartarmat taavalaam qimussimangalasinnaassaratta naak ilaanikut qimussertarnap sivikittaraluart soorlakunneermarlu innaat misigisartaan ilaanikam takkuteriataartarpo pingortitamiinneq avatangiisiniin avatan qanoona pingortitamiillun taanna misigisaq assiginarpaa ilaanikku soorl piffisam sivisum angalalluni
Artists in the now are answering collective cultural needs and developing active and practical roles in environmental and social issues. I illustrate through my own practice some of the skills and thinking that the artists can bring to environmental debate and to collaborative undertakings. At the same time, I seek to communicate human values to my public. Out of Ice extends my creative abilities in engineering minimal environments with water, providing a portrayal of the psychological, physical and the poetic dimensions of ice. It was like a laboratory experiment, offering a way of observing ice-water transitions.
She sets ice as material alongside ice as aesthetic object. She sets up Greenland both as a wilderness and as a social space. Film for her is simultaneously an aesthetic and a documentary form. Out of Ice deliberately places the spaces of meditation and documentary alongside each other, with the resulting interference patterns of sound and vision from both factored in.
The sensory experience was strong. The video projection and the game of refraction with the installation water mirror remind me of Venice, especially at night, when only the silent waving is heard. But the architectural structure of the installation also referred to a temple, a secret space, where the ice block that slowly melts is the offering to the gods. And here, the gods and the Olympus are the icebergs of Greenland, in deep danger.
Well, I'd like to say something about what we mean by the environment, because I think people are meaning very different things by the term, by the concept, and because they're meaning such different things, they're often talking past one another, and it's important that we understand each other in order to progress with the problem of how to tackle the effects of environmental and climatic change. Because we keep being told by policymakers and scientists that the world is changing in ways that could have catastrophic consequences, at least in the longer term, for human inhabitation of the planet. But I often think in the way that people are talking about the environment, I wonder whether they're really talking about a world that we have ever inhabited. In ordinary life, by environment, we mean the world that surrounds us, with plants and animals busily involved in their own lives as we are in ours. And sometimes we forget this, especially when we're sitting inside lecture theatres and conference halls listening to lectures by people telling us about the environment, but with images on the screen and blinds drawn to cut out the light, and they tell us that the environment is quite different from what we commonly imagine it to be. And this environment is said to be a global environment. And if you think about the Earth and the globe is quite a difficult thing to think that we inhabit. I can think of inhabiting the world that is around me with the Earth below and the sky above and the creatures around, but the globe seems like this solid ball, and we humans are stuck around on the outside surface of it. So it's a more general problem of how to link up the sorts of knowledge about the environment that people have from inhabiting it with the sorts of knowledge that scientists are presenting us with about it. So this is the general problem of how to link the knowledge of science with the knowledge of inhabitants. It's a bit like an hourglass with scientific knowledge at the top and inhabitants' knowledge at the bottom, with scientific understandings of the environment at the top and inhabitants' knowledge of environment at the bottom. And I'm not suggesting that we should turn this hourglass upside down, but to turn it on its side so that there can be a proper exchange of ideas between what people know from living in an environment and what scientists can tell us from their observations, recordings and measurements. I mean, the difference between them is this, that if you inhabit an environment, you perceive it quite directly in the way you move around with the senses. It's something that is so much a direct part of your experience that the environment becomes almost part of who you are. But if you're a scientist, the important thing is to maintain a distance, and scientists use instruments and methods to make sure that their own presence does not affect the kinds of measurements they make about the environment. So we need somehow to bring these two things together. And I think the problems are not so much philosophical problems as political problems, in that traditionally the sort of knowledge that comes from science has been powerful, has been the kind of knowledge that the politicians and policymakers respond to, whereas the kind of knowledge that comes from actually inhabiting an environment has been to some extent suppressed. And so we have a situation where the actual poetics of dwelling, the actual way of being in an environment is put to one side and not recognized as being fundamental to the practice of science itself. So I think what I would want to argue is that we try and move to a situation where science also recognizes that the knowledge that comes from science has to grow out of a practical, purposeful, intimate engagement with the environment in which they're working, whether it be a glacier or a tropical forest or whatever it might be, and that the knowledge grows out of that involvement. And once we recognize that, then it will be easier to put together that knowledge with knowledge of inhabitants. And once we can do that, then we can perhaps better translate the prognostications of scientific research on climate change into practical action that can actually be taken to try and deal with the problems that we face at the moment.
I'm looking forward once again to being based back in the studio and thinking ahead. So where precisely is the work leading me? The inquiry into ice presents many choices with its wide range of behaviours, its changeable nature and multiple guises. Inspired by the writings of Thoreau and Emerson, there is the world of ice crystals to celebrate and their unique manifestation of the principle of life. Glaciers and their infrastructure as models of poetic composition and as geomorphic agencies, as well as the ecology of ice and paradoxical aspects of ice to study in more depth. And in the words of Ernest Shackleton, what the ice gets, the ice keeps. So there's also the world of ice coring and its findings to explore. Multidisciplinary collaboration is an energising and inspiring way of working, particularly with exceptional colleagues. Drawing on diverse fields opens up possibilities for art in the present and offers new perspectives. It also naturally extends the audience by association. One of the most surprising strands to develop from Out of Ice, taking me into fresh territory, is an interactive projected experience, a collaboration in its research stage with game developers and climate scientists. It will fuse real-time ice data and human interaction in a large dynamic wall projection, presenting an amorphous abstract ice body created through a tension between data from ice changes and human awareness. The resulting minimal projection is created using a visual network of nodes. It will immerse the player in a compelling participatory space constructed from ice data. Poetry, meditative space and the passage of time within the installations are established features, as are my ongoing concerns about the environment. I will continue to engage my audience in immersive and experiential installations which point them toward the natural world and our impact on it, as did Out of Ice in unsaid form. Again, water and ice will be both medium and subject in the work, along with new technology and expanding scale to create a sense of wonder, parallel to my own experiences in the wilds. I'm very privileged to have spent so much research time for Out of Ice in the solitude of the Ilulissat region, northwest Greenland. Moreover, my childhood in the wilds of Scotland, itself a northern nation, and the legacy of great intellectuals such as Patrick Geddes, John Muir and James Hutton, continue to act as a catalyst for my thinking and philosophy. And without a doubt, landscape in Scotland has compelled my imagination and shaped my character.